Will Palaszczuk is not only the voice of Charlotte FC, he does postgame for the Carolina Panthers. So let's just start with the, in my opinion, the lesser of the two footballs, but we'll start with Bryce Young. Now, Dave Canales is going to announce who's going to start next week. Can you come up with a valid reason not to start Bryce Young next week?
I can't, Adam. I really can't. I think when you look at the way that he played on Sunday, I think you look at it and you say, hey, there's a lot to like. I think there were two passes that he didn't have completed that should have been completed. The one to David Moore on the far sideline, and then the one to Xavier Leggett that I think maybe his injured hand was kind of affecting him a little bit. So from that perspective, you look at it and say, okay, it's, maybe one you want to have back, but at the same point in time, I don't think he could have done anything more on that throw. He probably should have had more than 200 yards passing and no interceptions, and when you think about it, he was very efficient. The problem that I have with it is, what playbook is Dave Canales going to use? Is he going to use the Bryce Young section of the playbook, or is he going to use the sections of the playbook that are only reserved for Andy Dalton? That's the part of the game on Sunday that I might have a little bit more issue with, because I don't think that in every single drive and possession Dave Canales put his quarterback in the best position to win. And I'm talking specifically about that second drive of the third quarter where they called 3 consecutive screens, and they were playing more scared than they were actually aggressive.
I think that we see a lot of that. We saw that for the entirety of the game, I thought, at Denver, where Denver's got a great pass rush, and the truth is that the Panthers don't pass block well. So I get I understand being nervous about that. But you can't play that way. You can't play a game afraid to get a sack or afraid to turn the ball over. You got to play. And I think that, whether Bryce Young is any good or not, you still have to play the game the right way. I think the Panthers got deservedly spanked in Denver for the way they approached it, and I think they got deservedly rewarded for approaching the game the right way against the Saints, even though the Saints are bad.
The other part of it, too, is still, again, you say you're a running team. Why is your primary back touching the football 15 times?
Right.
That's the part of it. Like, I made the joke on our show yesterday. I said, look, maybe on Wednesday we need to get somebody to introduce Dave Canales to Chuba Hubbard to make sure that he knows that he's still there. And I kind of understand why we saw a lot of Miles Sanders. The trade deadline is tomorrow.
Sure.
They are very much trying to showcase him and take that albatross of a contract off their books.
Right.
I don't think that they had very much success trying to showcase him because he had minus 10 negative yards and I think 5 touches. So I understand that, but at the end of the day, like, you're in a football game. Like play this thing to win. Don't run the jet sweep to Devin Tompkins. Put Bryce under center.
I hated that call. If you're going to run the ball. That's fine. I got no problem with running the ball. But yeah,
just put Bryce under center and run the stretch play. Like, that's exactly what Chuba Hubbard's bread and butter is. And it wasn't like he was bad.
No.
He was actually very good. He had something like 4.5 yards per carry.
Yeah. He had a couple of bigger runs. He had like a 12 or 13 yard run early, and
16-yard touchdown run at the end to seal it. Come on,
great touchdown run to seal it. And Bryce was really good when they needed him to be really good. He also, he throws the ball pretty well down the field. I just, if you need to help, whether it's Christensen or if Aquanu is back, if you need to provide help to your left tackle, do it. Let a back stay in and chip. But gosh, just
the O-line wasn't a problem yesterday. The O-line wasn't a problem yesterday.
Right.
The only was sacked once, and I think that one was maybe a little bit more on Bryce than it was the offensive line. Yeah, the protection broke down, but I think he kind of I think he ran into the unfortunate weak side of the protection there. So from that perspective, maybe that one's a little bit on Bryce, probably one of his only real flaws of the game. But outside of that, they protected him, kept him upright. I think Brady Christensen held his water in moments. I think Cade Mays did the same thing at the center position, and the rest of the principals were good. So it's not like you could complain about anything from an execution standpoint on the offensive line, and I think Bryce executed what he was told to do. I just feel like he could be told to do things that are more on the aggressive side, because when he was able to actually thread the needle and maybe uncork a little bit, he was on point accurate.
Yeah, look, I think there were a lot of things to like. I think there's certainly room. He had a couple of passes that could have been picked. Sometimes he throws on the more diagonal routes or on the lateral routes, which I kind of hate. Sometimes the pass is not on the right side, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But on the JT Sanders 46-yard catch and run, like, he let him into space, so he allowed Sanders kind of a running start to get up the sideline. So those passes need to be thrown accurately too. But I think he throws the ball relatively well down the field. So I thought it was a very good start. And if Dave Canales doesn't name him the quarterback, and I expect he will, because there, as like you said, I asked the question specifically. There's no valid reason to not play him unless somehow he got hurt, which I would say, yeah, probably not. But I just liked seeing him smile when it was all over. He had not been in a victory formation since college. Because they won both.
I think he'll start. I think he will. I think part of that might be some, again, with the trade deadline being tomorrow, that might be a little bit of the kind of intrigue that maybe draws somebody. But I think at that point, you've kind of tipped your hand to everybody. I think Andy Dalton could have started this week if they wanted to have him start. I think there was some real intrigue to see if Bryce had built on something with the Denver game. And again, look, with a bye coming up, this allows you a perfect opportunity to give Bryce Young 3 consecutive starts and then an extra set of time to bring you into the second half of the season. And look, the thing that I said at the beginning of the season is that the wins or losses, whether they come or not, are not the most important thing about this season. The most important thing about this season is you have to figure out unequivocally and without real question what you have with Bryce Young. And you can't do that with him sitting on the bench.
Nope. No, even if it is to trade him. And
sure.
In my opinion, and I don't know if you shared this, but you were going pretty close to where I have been. In my opinion, Dave Canales looks like a coach that's been trying to prove that Bryce can't play, rather than a coach that is trying to prove that he can. And so if you decide that you don't want Bryce Young to be your quarterback, that's fine. The organization makes whatever decisions they want to make, and that's okay. We'll all be fine with it. If you want to move him, then that's fine. Move him, but you'll get more for him if he looks like there's something there. And being terrified to use him, terrified to give him NFL plays, only depresses his trade value, which means that you're not going to get anything for him, and nobody's going to take the 2 years of guaranteed money left on his deal also. So in my opinion, the best thing you can do is do the best you can with him, and then if you move him in the offseason, because that's where I think they'd move him, then you do that. But it's not doing you any good to make him look incompetent.
Well, I think the thing with Dave is that the 3 quarterbacks that he is known for having his imprints on previously were all veterans who were on their second or later stop in the National Football League. And I think he's finding out how difficult it is to develop these young quarterbacks. And there have been a lot of people who have talked about this young quarterback dilemma that we found ourselves in the league. Greg Olson said it prominently on a podcast last week, and there have been a couple of others who have literally come out and said there is a problem when it comes to the league developing quarterbacks. It's because when they get them, they're not ready. But because of the way the contract is structured, the organizations feel like, well, we're paying them all this money. They have to be ready. And we would rather have them make their own mistakes. But then comes the urgency of needing to win and needing to get it right. And, of course, these coaches are now finding out that, hey, you know what? I have to coach for my job and show proof of concept. And a lot of times, too, players don't want to be in a room where we're just waiting around until the guy gets it right. So it has become a real dichotomy of thought when it comes to the National Football League in terms of how you develop these guys, but also how do you get the full value of the contract? And it's maybe going to take some sort of shift on how these guys are paid. Maybe you backload these deals in more of a way so that you're not pressured to play them right away. But at the same point in time, I don't know how it changes. I don't know how it shifts, because it's not as if, there are going to be generational guys who come in and are great off the bat. I mean, Daniels from Washington, Stroud last year with Houston, those guys are definitely bucking the trend that seems to be the larger one. But at the same point in time, more than enough of these guys have had to take their growing pains through their first couple of seasons, and some of them did so already getting jettisoned before the end of their rookie deal.
Two very quick things, and I want to move on to your other job. I've been saying this for, it's like a broken clock. That actually doesn't make any sense. But I literally have been saying this for years. That quarterbacks, broken record. Yes, thank you. Gosh, am I still tired? Didn't we turn the clocks back? Not ahead. Literally, college football programs are not here to train quarterbacks for the NFL. They're here to win games, and they use a certain offense across the board now to win games. They don't care about getting quarterbacks ready for the NFL. And even the teams that play more of a pro style are really dumbing it down so they can win games. They're not trying to get these quarterbacks ready. So that's one part. The quarterbacks don't arrive, as you said, they don't arrive ready to play. And leagues and teams and owners, they overdraft quarterbacks. We draft them way earlier in drafts than they belong getting picked. And then we put them on the field sooner, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Rather than, all right, we're going to draft you appropriately, or wherever we draft you, we're going to make sure you develop before we put you in a situation. But we don't do that. That takes willpower, something that a lot of coaches, because your time is short, Dennis Allen has sort of proved that. It takes willpower and an owner who also has willpower. All right, let me get to your other job, because you have a dilemma. No, actually you don't, because the game is your soccer game is Saturday.
Yes.
At Orlando City after the penalty shootout win. So Christian Kalina, goalkeeper of the year in Major League Soccer, stops 2 of 4 penalties. One was I think over the bar was the other one. For somebody whose son is a goalkeeper, I know what the odds are. You're not supposed to stop any. He stopped 2 of 4. I heard your call. Are you okay?
I'm good. I'm good. It was